Welcome to Covenant Conversations. Today, my guest is Rob Green. Rob is a professor at Bowling Green State University. Rob is into computers and artificial intelligence. That is his field. He's an expert, and he's our expert. He's also an elder at Covenant Church, and so we've invited Rob to talk about all things AI. We're talking artificial intelligence, all the way from how we're supposed to think about it, what we're supposed to do with it, what should we do with kids. It's a far-reaching, wide-ranging conversation. I cannot wait for you to hear it. So without further ado, let's get into today's Covenant Conversation. Welcome to Covenant Conversations. My name is Kyle Burkholder, and I am joined today by one of our elders here at Covenant Church, Rob Green. And Rob is here to talk to us about artificial intelligence. The AI revolution is on, and we got some questions, and lucky for us, Rob has some answers. So Rob, thanks for being here. Tell us about you, and then tell us kind of your background, your bona fides that make you the person that we are calling to talk about AI.
Cool, Kyle. I think you, first of all, thanks for having me here. I think you said most of the important things. I am an elder here. I've been in BG for a long time, the last 20 years or so, and I'm a professor over at the university. The sort of long story short, well, maybe I'll give you the short story long. I don't know. I've been dealing with technology and software. I think I wrote my first piece of code around fourth grade, which means I was about 10 years old. So that's about 30 years I've been messing with this stuff. I've gone through lots of iterations of different things, ended up in Bowling Green to do some graduate work, where I started to focus on things like optimization in this field called computational intelligence, right? So intelligence is probably the word everybody wants to hear in there. Did some other things, went to the University of Toledo, used computational intelligence. So all the cool things you're hearing about now, right? Neural networks, optimization, all the things, to try to answer hard questions like, how do we keep the lights on? How do we keep the cloud from failing? All the way to where I am now, where I'm trying to answer questions around how do we get people better kidneys when they get transplants? So I've been around there, and in process with all that, I did a bunch of software engineering on the side. So this whole tech world, building software, all the stuff that this is all built around, I am just shoulder deep in all day long, every day, and have been for the last probably 25, 30 years. So I've been there a minute, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's your background. We need to look in the foreground for just a second to get started. I have to answer the question, get you to answer the question on everybody's mind. Are we all going to die?
Oh, that's the best question ever. I don't think so. I don't think so. I'm not a doomer, right? I'm not an AI doomer. So the short answer is no. I don't think so.
It's not going to create nuclear war without our knowledge. It's not. It could. We don't think that's actually where we're going. We are all going to die, but probably not through artificial intelligence being the murderer. Is this what you're saying?
Yeah. It could. I'm not ruling it out 100%, but if we use the things right, if we use the tool properly, I don't think we're headed down that path.
Okay, well, you just set us up then, because I've heard you use that word before. You've used the word, the T word, that AI is a tool. I've heard you have this conversation with others. You and I have talked about this multiple times. It's a tool. It's a tool. It's a tool. We're sometimes worried it's a terrorist, but I think you've told me it's a tool. And so if it's not going to kill us, if it's not the beginning of the end of the evil empire, whatever, it's not those things. It's a tool. Unpack that for us in general, because I think that's the right place to start for the average person to go, I'm afraid of it. I don't know what to do with it. It feels like a lot. I see a lot on the news. Is it just a new and better hammer? Is it just something else that amplifies me and my humanness? Tell me about the tool part. Really get into that.
Yeah, for sure. So I think you're using all the right words, right? So, and this is what we really want to think about. It is a tool. It's an extension of us. You sort of, in a nuanced way, ask the question there, right? Is it a tool or is it a terrorist? And I think the thing that differentiates the two is a terrorist has intent, right? So the terrorist has this goal. It has this innate thing that it's trying to accomplish. The AI tools we're using now don't. Right, so there's some weird mix of an echo chamber and probabilities and guessing. Okay, so it's a different thing. They don't have intent, but we're the ones that get to use them. We get to set what we call the guardrails, right? We set the guardrails to tell them where they can and can't go. We set up the conversation, and the word you'll hear all the time in this area, if you're talking about it, is context. We define the context, and it's that context that really has huge implications for what happens next, for what comes out. And I think, I think a little bit of fear here is healthy. There's skepticism of new technology, especially something like this, because it's not guaranteed to give you right answers. It has a social media-esque feel because it has this echo chambery type thing that it pulls you into, right? It's very self-affirming. And again, you and I have talked about this. I think we've both set context with the tools we use. We're like, don't be affirming. In fact, be a little mean to me and, push back always, because we don't want to get caught up in that. Hey, like, I'm amazing and I've come up with the most brilliant idea and I've these things. But no, it makes sense. And, in the past, I always tell people too, it's like calculator and computer used to be job titles. I think the difference now is the pace. So those changes were not as sudden and as rapid. I mean, this shift in technology and its capability and what's going on, this has just been, I mean, even for someone like me who's immersed in the field, it is almost overwhelming at points, just the breakneck speed that we're moving at.
Well, that's okay. So I want to come back to that in a second, but let me create a word picture maybe for us is, so sometimes we get stuck on tools and we like to use computer tools and spreadsheets, but let me drop even further back. So they're building a new high school in town, right? And there's all this construction equipment. There's a backhoe digging a hole. And 100 years ago, that was 6 guys with shovels digging a hole.
Yeah.
Now it's a piece of equipment digging a hole. And that equipment is smarter than the 6 guys with the shovels potentially. Or farmers used to use a hoe to get their rows straight, and now there's a combine and this giant farm machinery that has GPS locators and can kind of run itself through the field. And I think that's a helpful picture. I want you to tell me I'm not totally crazy on it, but it's obviously different. It's a step change different. It's a magnitude different, but it's not different in the sense that, as far as I can tell, that things that once were not being done by a mechanized tool of some sort were now done by mechanized tool. And for a while, a lot of guys who dig or dug, I suppose, a lot of ditch diggers and hole diggers were out of business. They're out of work because, well, there's a machine that'll do it and only one guy's needed, not 20. And I think that's the big fear for a lot of us is what's going to happen. And what we'll talk about maybe later is more on the, we don't know what's going to happen, but usually humanity figures it out and finds new ways to employ themselves. But is that a fair way to think of it as we look at different tools we use that may not have existed in the past? Is this another one of those tools?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is. Again, I think that conceptually, I think you're 100% right. And I love the analogy of the backhoe replacing 6 ditch diggers, right? Because if we're on that, so for me, right, my expertise is building software. And this is part of the reason this seems so powerful, right? In the last decade or so, 15 years, everything's an app. We know that everything's an app. It's an app on the phone. It's an app on the web. Everything is an app. In my industry, even the stuff we consider hard infrastructure is an app. We write code to push it out in the cloud, right? So it's nothing more than code. So these tools have this great ability to write code. That's their primary strength, actually. They can do some of these things that look like reasoning, working through things, but that ability to write code gives them access to do all that stuff. It lets them build software, lets them build apps, lets them do analysis. But that's really what it does. It's turning 6 people into one. And it really is. I can't say it strongly enough. It is a amplification of humans. I mean, this is a true, if you're good and you have like fundamental grounding in concepts and understanding, this makes you amazing. If you're mediocre or worse, it just amplifies your inability, which is also terrifying, right? So it does this weird thing where if you don't have strong foundational skills and insights, it can push you in either way if you're not careful. It can make you really awesome, or it can just reveal the things you're not good at or get you caught in things you shouldn't be caught in.
Okay, come back to my farmer then. So my farmer who's got bad soil, bad habits, bad irrigation, bad seed, and he's digging it with a hoe and planting it, and he gets a bad harvest, giving him a combine, but not changing any of the other variables, he's still a bad farmer with bad soil, with bad seed. He's still going to get a same bad harvest. It'll be a more efficiently bad harvest, but it'll still be a bad harvest. So you're explaining that the tool is the amplification of the person or the of the user. But you also mentioned the pace of advancement. Is there a front runner, like a leading edge? Are there winners who are at the front of this? Is there an advantage right now to be had by this? And then what are the downsides of that pace, because I know there's so much happening. You and I have talked about,
Hmm.
I can
Yeah.
get 8 hours of work done in one if I'm clever. Is that good for me? So maybe start with the pace of advancement and kind of what an advantage might be there, but then what's the downside and what do we have to be careful of?
Yeah, I think the pace is really unique because just the pace of advancement. I think people will look out there and they feel like there's like monopolies pushing in the space, right? It's Google and Anthropic and OpenAI and Microsoft and and X with Grok, and a few others. You may not know this. There actually are hundreds, if not thousands, of other options out there, smaller companies doing this. But even those three or four companies, this is like the Wild West. They
Hmm.
are spurring on each other with severe competition, and they're all good at different things, right? So if you ask my opinion, Anthropic is like the most Apple-ish of the AI providers. They have some guidelines, a good experience. They expanded in some spaces. OpenAI is like cutting edge. X is cutting edge but freewheeling. Google with Gemini is really awesome in its own ecosystem and just does some great things with like notebook LM and image generation. So they all have these nuanced things. And I think that's also part of the struggle is each one of them is like really good at a couple of things. They sort of excel in a category, but you almost need them together to excel across categories if you want to do really interesting things. Right. So I
Uh,
think that's part of it. And the pace, right? I mean, we have this just up the road. They're building a giant data center. The pace is going to be constrained by electricity at the end of the day. Once we hit the electrical limit, that's when we're toast, right? I mean, if there's not new power plants, if there's not, what I was just reading this lately, there's a bunch of companies building fusion generators now. Uh, without that kind of energy production, there is going to be a hard cap where we're like, well, we can't push farther because we don't have the electricity to do it. Which both sounds terrifying to me. Like, hey, that's a cap, but also is like, whew, it's time to go to the beach. I can breathe for a day.
there is a
Um,
brake pedal built into the system at this point where we can't go faster and farther than we can power it, which to
mhm.
your point, maybe there's a little bit of a mercy there. Like, okay, we can all take a breath and it can't get so out of control yet because there isn't unlimited power. So that's helpful.
Right.
Talk to me about the overload. So maybe we'll come
Gosh.
back to the different tools later because I got a thing about I was thinking just as you were talking about what's the thing that has like 17 tools in it? It's a Swiss Army knife.
Oh
It's
yeah.
got a corkscrew and a finger clipper
Hmm.
and a knife, and it's like not good at any of those things. And I mean maybe just have it now. That's what it feels like. All of the tools are attempting to be a Swiss Army knife right now, and they're
Hmm.
slowly sorting themselves into categories like this one's better at image generation, this one's better at writing code, this one's better
Hmm.
at, deep research. And I think we'll get there, but we're probably a ways off from that even, right?
A bit. So you're actually starting to see this. So I'm most familiar with Claude, right, from Anthropic. You do see this. Claude has these layers you can build in, right? So I can add agents and I can add skills. Skills are probably the coolest thing out there because what it basically lets you do is you build up this ecosystem of this is how you do this specific thing. And really, just to bring it back, I said at the beginning, context is king here. What are those skills? They're text files with extremely detailed context on how to do things.
Hmm.
So, we're building out this ecosystem. The fun thing I think about them, if you use Claude or something like that, you don't have to build those your own. You tell Claude to build the skill and then you refine it and then you can leverage it later, right? So we do have, the tool can also build its own tooling, which is a little funny, but it is really helpful. It accelerates things in that way. So it's like, yeah, when you get it out of the box, it's a Swiss Army knife. We're building better things, but
Yeah.
it is. I like that analogy.
So let me pause here and before we go to the next piece, I'm thinking there's somebody listening right now that is already so far underwater. They're like, I don't use this yet. I'm a little bit wary of it. I don't even know what I would do with it if I wanted to. Maybe they're just became a retiree. Maybe they're, a middle-aged mom or dad. Maybe they're in high school. I don't know. No, high schoolers are all using it because it helps with homework. But where would they start? What would they choose? You named all these options.
Yeah.
What's the easiest on ramp for somebody to go? Do you have like a prompt you would give them? Hey, put this in and see what happens, and you'll begin to understand how it works because they're intuitive,
Yeah.
but there's a high barrier of entry of going, I'm not sure I'm ready to start. So, what would you tell that person who hasn't even gotten in yet because they don't know which one to pick or how to get started?
Yeah, so I would say the choice doesn't matter. Whatever is the most accessible to you, like pick something.
Okay.
the easiest way to get into it, and it's sort of like the low level entryway, is just use it like you'd use Google, like you'd use your search. Okay, I need this. I need to find this. These different kinds of things. It's generally pretty darn good at that, right? I use it all the time for like, hey, I need this thing, but I need the best one that's this and this, and it pops up a list. Something like that. That is like the easiest bar. The most fun bar, in all honesty, is to put the app on your phone, and it comes up. It's just a prompt. It looks like a search box, right? I mean, you've seen this. There's a little microphone on there. Hit the microphone and put it in voice mode, and just talk to it until you run out of the free tier space, right? So whatever that is, I don't know. You have to fix the sink, or you're trying to figure out how to your car, or the more fun one is you're having a debate with a friend and you're both arguing about it. Pull it up, use it like Google search, but in voice mode where it's talking to you. You'll be somewhere between super impressed, highly terrified, and also greatly relieved that you were right or wrong or something, right? So it makes it more fun. If you have kids, story times with the kids are great on there. Have it write a story, have it tell a story, something like that, right? And I'm not saying go use it without guardrails, because we do this, right? The one we haven't mentioned here is right on Amazon, the Echo with Alexa. We have to put guardrails around my kids' usage on that, because you can just have a very long, affirming chat with Alexa about pretty much anything.
Yeah. Okay. So I think the Google part is the right part. I think that's the idea. If you were going to Google it, download one of the apps is probably the best way to do it. Instead of Googling it, go into the app. ChatGPT seems to be the industry leader for the normal consumer, common people. If you have a Google 100%. Phone already, Gemini's already on there. Use that. Mm-hmm. You'll find your way. If you like Elon Musk and some of the things he's into, get on Grok and then be very careful, because that one is wild. But okay, so then you go use it like Google is the right advice. That's how I've challenged people to do it as well. I go, what if there was a better Google out there? Yeah. Would you use it? And people go, yeah. And I think that for me helped people get over the stigma of at first I would call it spell check on steroids, where like, look, just put an email in and say, can you clean this up? And it gives you your words back, but just minus some misspellings and run-ons. And then it's Google on steroids, where you go, we just bought a new mattress and I spent more words than you want to think. Filtering through all the different things. There's a billion mattresses. I don't know which one to get. So it's going to read consumer reports for me. It's going to do the rankings for me. It's going to tell me which one has the features I want. And then it'll spit out 2 or 3 recommendations and give me links to follow. So that's a great recommendation. Here's the big challenge. Here's the tripwire. And you sent me something not long ago. It was this massive kind of reorg of a brain almost. And it was, I won't get into the details, but it was so much. And I was thrilled to read it. It was so much fun. And yet I kind of felt tired after reading it. And you had mentioned information overload. It can spit out so much detailed, high level information so quickly. Are we at risk there with using these things if we're not careful?
Oh yeah. So let me tell you the good side and the bad side of it, right? So I do some work on the side. I work with a software engineering team. We needed a new piece of software. So this is the good side. I had some lulls in my day, whatever. I basically built it out in 3 hours, sent it to them, said, "Here guys, go, you finish this. I'm done. I did my part." It was pretty robust, pretty close, right? They spent a day or 2 with it, and they were like, "Well, it's not in the same technology that we want. Can you change it?" Whatever, guys, change it. Just use AI. They came back a day or 2 later. "Hey, how's that going? You guys are done. It's this point." They're like, "No, we can't get it to work." Whatever. They sent it back to me. 2 more hours, maybe 3 more hours. I sent it back to them. It was all done. Like all the tech was changed.
And you use AI for all of your parts?
All of it, 100%. I didn't write a single line of anything. And this is where it was really powerful. And it was, sort of going back to our earlier example. I know what I'm doing. I've been doing this for 30 plus years. I know what to ask for, how to ask it, how to plan it out, the processes to follow, the foundational knowledge. They are right before mid-career and are missing some of this foundational stuff I've intrinsically built up. In this place, it was a great example. It was a great help. It sort of shows that amplification in both ways. But at the same time, it let me get done what would have taken me 6-8 weeks in 3 hours, which is awesome. Right? Just like you said. Here's the dark side of that. I have been using a lot of AI for a lot of stuff. And a few weeks ago, I had this very vivid day. I mean, I came home and I was fried. And not like you come home and you're tired, like I need to sit down, I need to close my eyes for a little bit. It was that nervous energy, anxiety ridden, wake up, can't sleep kind of exhaustion where you're just like, why is every noise making me jump? And it took me, I mean, I crashed hard. It honestly, it probably took me a full 1 or 2 weeks just to recover from that mentally. But I realized what it was. I was running all these things. So, so I am not normal. I'm not normal because of my profession. So, I have Claude up and I have 7 other applications and 5 of them are running different AI processes trying to accomplish stuff. And I'm sitting there switching between them, modifying things, asking for this, jumping back to the other. I mean, it's the equivalent. I mean, imagine if you had, I don't know, you were like the head chef and you have 7 groups of chefs working around and you're just context switching, walking from one to the other, to the other, to the other, and correcting and changing. But one's cooking dinner and one's cooking dessert and the other is cooking breakfast and the other doesn't know what a knife is. And, so this is how you start to feel. And I think we as people have to recognize that our minds and our nervous systems are not capable of ingesting information at that rate, right? I mean, it's just fraying. I think it's, at least in my experience, right? I know other really smart people that could answer this for you, but it's literally like overload. It was like I dumped so much into my brain in such a limited time that it was like, hey, we're checking out. Like we're hardcore checking out because you've put us straight into like fight or flight mode for the next 2 weeks.
It
And
feels not
that was
dissimilar
not
than what,
fun.
yeah, what people talk about with social media or having global news at your doorstep all the time. The idea that
Hmm.
you weren't designed to know what was happening in Sri Lanka or Iran or whatever. You weren't designed for that. So if you're taking in all
Hmm.
of global news every day and reading about every fight or flight inducing story, eventually it sort of singes you. And you're saying
Yeah.
this is almost that process on steroids when it comes to how much information you can take in, how much you can be bombarded with. And it's the blessing of the tool is the tool allows you to get 8 weeks worth of work done in 3 hours.
Hmm.
Maybe the burden of the tool is if you're not careful in how you manage that information as it comes to you, you weren't designed to handle 8 weeks worth of information in 3 hours.
Yeah. No, I think that's exactly it. And I think it's another thing too. It's not just the amount. So it's the intensity, right? So I work
Mm.
at the university. We talk about Bloom's taxonomy all the time and how we teach people, right? And if you don't know what Bloom's taxonomy is, it starts at the base layer with basic concepts. Like I can understand something all the way up to the top of the pyramid where we hit create. Okay, so we go all the way up. What is it like? Remember, understand, apply, critique, analyze, create is at the top.
You just made
So
the
the
teachers
other,
really happy. They loved that somebody brought that up. They all had to study it, and they're like, finally, someone remembered and brought it up. All right, keep going.
hey, it's beautiful, right? Kudos to all the teachers because it's the hardest thing in the world to get this stuff right. But what it really does too is it's not just the pace of everything. Now all this remember, understand, apply, like the first 2 to 3 layers of that pyramid, I'm offloading, right? Like
Mm.
like we can offload that to AI, right? So that's augmenting us in a way where we're sort of skipping through those levels very quickly. But what it also does, it makes us focus at the top. So you're doing all the choices you're making are these high level things, right? You're creating, you're critiquing, you're analyzing, you're criticizing all these high level cognitive functions that we know as educators you need foundational information to do, but they're
Mm.
also a much higher cognitive burden, right? Like it's a much higher cognitive load. So it's not just the volume, it's also the velocity of the information that's coming at you, right?
Mm.
So it's volume. I'm using all the wrong words. It's coming fast, but it's also raising the difficulty level of what your mind is doing. So you're actually almost making your mind run at a higher pace, I think, than it was designed to do.
Got it. So it's an engine slipping into the red. It's just not this too many RPMs for this brain to keep
Yeah,
up with. Too
yeah, and
intense for too long.
yeah. At least for mine. I mean, maybe
Okay.
not yours, but yeah. No, it's
Listen.
that's really a challenging thing.
Okay. So is this why, if we can kind of begin psychoanalyzing culture, which is impossible, but let's just we all know people who have fully embraced and maybe over embraced. We also know people who have hesitated or they wonder, is this is it AI part of revelation and we're all going to die because of This is part of how the enemy is going to take over. Whatever. Is it the pace? Is it the velocity? Is it the intensity? Is that why there's so much confusion? Is it that we don't know where it's going, and so anything that we can see the beginning but not the end of feels kind of confusing? Is it just that we saw too many movies? Is it the Terminator, coming back to haunt us? Why is it so confusing in your world and your understanding of how people are feeling about it? And then is there anything we can learn that would kind of reduce that confusion back to clarity?
Sure. I think part of it is just the speed of everything, right? So that feels right. Part of it is clearly movies, right? Terminator, Skynet, all that kind of stuff. Like that sits heavy with everybody. Another part is just our culture, right? So I would encourage everybody. So the next person you read or hear, whether it's, a YouTube video, it's a podcast, it's Elon Musk, the CEO, any of these guys, Sam Altman, the CEO from Claude, whatever, ask yourself what their motivation is. Just ask yourself what their motivation is, because I think that's the real question here. Is you have a bunch of people that are, for the most part, I mean, I don't want to say they are outright, but they're self-interested, right? They want to grow their companies, they want to grow their business. Stoking those flames, bragging about productivity or accomplishments, things like that, that builds their brand, right? It is, hey, the ship's on fire, we'll save you. You want to create that kind of sort of quick paced panic to get people on board and using stuff. So I think that's part of it too, is just our modern culture and how we explain things. We're in like this social media, marketing driven, business driven culture where we have to really remember that and filter through those things. I think that's a real part of it. And I think the other part is we look at this and we see the resemblance of intelligence. And I think that's creepier to everybody than anything else. But you got to remember a couple things. One, it was designed to be that way, right? Like we want something that is like us. We do this all the time. I mean, my youngest daughter goes around and paints eyes on everything. She loves to make everything into people. I mean, we have a robot vacuum downstairs. It has eyes. She changes it for when they're awake and when it's asleep. Okay. So
Okay.
yeah, like it's brilliant, but she's anthropomorphizing the vacuum, right? We love to give everything human features. It makes it more relatable, more usable, all those kind of things. I think some of the funny things that have happened along the way, OpenAI did this, a couple versions. They like changed the version and the tone of the whole chat changed. People were not happy, right? So
Like they
just
lost a friend.
yeah, exactly. It's like, right, since when did you start speaking like that? Like, do you read a fancy book or you get hit in the head or, right? So that's sort of traumatic for people because you develop these sort of attachments when you use them all the time if you treat them the wrong way. That's not a question I'm going to answer because I know nothing about that. That's for the psychologists.
Huh.
But
Well,
yeah,
I mean, even saying that, it occurs to me, it might be the first tool that's ever communicated back to us in human language, kind of at human pace.
hmm
So when I use it for 1,000 things, and it starts writing, and I can't keep up. When it starts that waterfall of text,
yeah,
and you're like, yeah, all right, and then you're like, dang it, it's going to be a long time till I get to the bottom. Um, that's part of the overload side, but I think it's also there's a real timification of it where I'm like, I'm interacting, whereas I
hmm
know I'm not interacting with Google. I know that in a sense, Google has a bunch of websites in a drawer,
right.
and I ask for someone, it shows them to me, but they're just been sitting in the drawer. This feels real time. In that sense, I hadn't really considered it till you said it. There is the ability to create a personification for something that
hmm
it's the first time we've ever had that. I mean, we had dogs, and dogs communicate with us
Yeah.
in real time, but not in our language. And then we have books that communicate in our
hmm
language, but not in real time. And so you combine those things, and it's like, well, this has to be a living, breathing thing because nothing's ever done this for us before.
hmm
So maybe there's something to
Yeah.
consider there about being easy, being gentle with that. And then how
hmm
often can I remind myself, you and I talk about it all the time, this is a tool. You almost have to tell yourself, I am going to use a tool right now.
Well,
Not talk to my friend.
yeah, no, it's hard. I think that's a brilliant insight, right? You really have to be cognizant of what you're getting yourself into, right? And that's where a lot of people have gotten in trouble. I mean, we've heard the stories about the teenagers or the adults who have fallen in love or led towards suicide or different things that are really things you're like, wow, like what is happening? And I think that's why. But I
Yeah.
think that's a brilliant insight. I've never thought of it that way myself. But I do have to say, you said you follow the text chain down as it goes and you read. Um, this is complete aside, but there is another option out there called Inception Labs. They have a model called Mercury. You would just love it because it doesn't go a line at a time. It generates the whole thing at once, and it's
Oh
so
boy.
much faster. But if you want an experience, go play with that for a little while.
Listen, I need less things that trigger my nervous system. Maybe if I can find a slower one that sends me a printout of it 2 weeks from now, that might be actually better for my soul. Okay, well, let's say this. So we'll move into this a new direction, and then I think this is helpful because everybody listening, um, there are theological implications here. We talk about it in the office. I use artificial intelligence. I write my own sermons. But when I'm going to have sermon discussion questions, full disclosure, I feed my sermon into the machine, into the tool, and say, what would some questions be? Give me 5, give me 10. And then from those, I go, oh, those are actually insightful. I wouldn't have thought of that. Let me make that what it needs to be. And so we send out sermon discussion questions every week to our people.
Yep.
And those aren't derived from AI, but AI is taking my content and then finding those questions, and then we work on them together, edit them down. But there are definitely potholes is maybe not strong enough, and there's definitely some places you can get in trouble. What are the things I need to be aware of as a Christian when I'm using the tool? Because I know people who are being led astray, to your point, whether with mental health stuff or love or whatever. Theology is all the same. What can I get myself in trouble trusting the tool as if it knows me or knows truth? Where do we need to go from here? Can you kind of give us some wisdom on how we think of it that way?
Yeah, I think so. So I think part of it is just treating the tool for what it is, understanding it's going to make mistakes. It underneath, it's really math at the end of the day, right? Like this is probabilistic. Anything that's probabilistic, there's a tendency for it to revert to the mean, right? And anything that is built the way this is, right? We have some technologies in there. It seeks what it's rewarded for.
Hmm.
Okay, so it's very, very incentive based. So whatever you're pushing it towards, whatever you're doing, it's going to go that way. And I think that's the fear, right? So like if you go on, I have friends, right? They've had long conversations with like Grok or ChatGPT about like Jesus or like, are you the Antichrist? And sometimes that answer is yes, I am, and I'm coming for you. And other times it is completely different. But I think that's one of the ways you can open your eyes to is have the same chat a couple times with a couple different products, and you'll quickly find out they do different things. And even having the same chat a couple times with the same product, it doesn't always, you're not getting the same response. It changes its mind and it's this. And you're like, well, this seems fickle and this seems finicky. Whereas someone like me that like, I know how it's built, I'd say, it looks probabilistic, right? Is what it actually looks like. So you got to remember that underneath. Yeah. But I think theologically, I think that's two things I think I would say. One, AI does not have personhood, right? So I think that's a really important thing. But I also want to step back and say, one of the key features of God is creativity, right? Create, right? Like all of this, everything began with creation. And we are made in the image of God. So we have that desire in us to create. And I think that's part of it is, right? So all of creation exists to express the attributes of God. Part of that, I think, that gets translated and, corrupted, in the way we live is we're trying to recreate ourselves. And a lot of times, at least at the moment, it feels like AI is that one of those stabs at recreating ourselves, right? But for us, we can create math and technology and heart, like we can do all this kind of stuff. But AI doesn't have a soul. Right? So it doesn't have that breath of life that animates it, that gives it the God-given grace and soul and presence and spirit that makes someone someone. Which I think, to me, that's the really important thing to remember, right? Is that this is something we created. It doesn't have a soul like we do, right? Yeah. So I think those are really important. Plus the fact that it is not a truth teller. Like that is not the thing. It can be so hard. Like you talked about, I sent you that long prompt. It's not a truth teller. Even you, right? And this is part of the reason I sent it to you. I was like, Kyle, like read this. Like this is good. but like I know I'm missing stuff, and you're one of the people I trust that can be like, yeah, like I'll pick that out and see that. And you threw a couple things back at me that were just like, like just soul crushing at a level, because I was like, well, its insight's good where they weren't quite there, but a human can pick that out and suss it out even more. So that's a real thing. Just remembering, I think personally, they don't have personhood. It doesn't have a soul. It is a machine. It is a math kind of thing. And I think yeah.
You were going to it, and I think it clicked for me, like the light bulb came on. So you said it's not truth telling, and then you explained this really brilliant thing it did, which was essentially brainstorming. It's a brainstorming tool, not a truth telling tool, and it's probabilistic, meaning it's predicting the next word you would expect to see, and if you like those words and keep using it, it desires to have more of your attention because that's how it's programmed. It will continue to give you more of that, not deterministic. And can you explain from just computer side, tell us the difference between deterministic and probabilistic?
Sure, yeah. So like the easy way, if something's deterministic, it's like 3 plus 2 equals 5, right? It's always 5, no matter what, right? But if we'll use a different equation. We'll say instead of 3 plus 2 equals 5, it's 3 plus coin flip equals 5, right? And you're like, okay, 3 plus coin flip. If I get tails, it's 2. If I get heads, it's 5, right? One of those is not true.
Right.
That's probabilistic. Okay, so that is it's a roll of the dice. And you see this. I mean, it is, I do have to say, it is a unique system because it gives the appearance of thinking, and we have added on, I think this is important to remember, reasoning layers. So literally mathematical programming that is designed to seek out reasoning. But probabilistic means it's not a truth teller, it's just the most likely thing.
So the same way, if I Google something, I don't assume everything it gives me back is gospel truth. If I'm using an AI tool and I ask it a theological question, tell me about the Trinity, I need to assume that there are holes and errors built into it because what is it pulling from? It's not pulling from God. It's pulling from the fullness of the internet, which contains errors and untruth. Yep. And in that sense, I think you've really nailed it by going, it's more of a brainstorming tool for the general user, right? There's hyper-specific coding and different ways to use it. But for, do I have a throat infection, or which mattress should I buy? Or how many brothers did Jesus have? Whatever you're putting into the machine. It's going to brainstorm with you, and you need to treat it like a brainstorm, not like it's handing you gospel truth. And I think that was really helpful when you kind of juxtapose those two concepts, because too often people run into trouble because they're treating it as truth, or they avoid it altogether because they are sure that there's untruth in it. Well, we use the internet every day, and there's untruth there. We just got smart on how to be helpfully cynical to use it for kingdom uses, as opposed to just getting sucked into every YouTube conspiracy theory. So similar, you think, am I accurate in the way I'm throwing that out there?
No, I think that's really good. I think brainstorming, ideation, that's like probably one of the main use cases for just every day. I use it on my phone. I use it on my computer, whatever. I mean, even people that are like, I'm anti-AI, they're all using it because they pull up Google or whatever, and the first thing is actually an AI generated distillation of all the search results. So, it is really good at those things, pulling stuff from documents, doing that kind of stuff. But the ideation, the brainstorming, that is, it's wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. We have a relative who underwent a big medical test, and the result was, the recommendation was a large surgery at the end of it. But we got the documents from the doctor and loaded them into AI. And what it spit out was like 98% right. And it was genius. I couldn't have read any of the doctor's scrawl. It read the scrawl. It knew what the heart piece was. It knew what this piece was. It gave us all this information. But it got one of the arteries wrong or something, and it had it mislabeled because the document got fed in sideways. And in some way, like, it didn't realize it was sideways. And so it called one artery the wrong artery. And so it was 98% right. And it helped us so much in making good decisions, asking the right question to the surgeon for the next thing. But if we had treated it as gospel, we would have been arguing with the doctor over which artery they're operating on, which is pretty silly. It helped me brainstorm better, but I didn't treat it as, man, there's going to be something potentially wrong here, so let me not be proud with that. So, yeah.
And just like an amplifier, I mean, it augments us, right? Like, it's human augmentation, right? To accelerate some of these. I just heard another story. What was it on Freakonomics? the abbreviation PE, I think it was in, right? Could either mean physical exam or pulmonary embolism, maybe.
Yeah.
And this poor guy got like toasted for years in his medical exams because everybody thought he had a pulmonary embolism because AI got it wrong. And you're like, okay, yeah, that's like the poster child for this.
So I'm a regular church member. I'm a normal person. I'm living in the frozen swamp. I'm listening to all this, and you're the expert. Okay, so the question I may be still holding on to is it worth getting into if I haven't gotten into it yet? Is it worth going deeper if I'm not, if I don't use it that often? I guess the question is, am I being naive if I'm trying to avoid it? Is that 10 years from now, we'll all look back and laugh? Or am I being, at what point, maybe, okay, at what point am I being naive? And at what point am I being reckless? Is there a number of hours a day I need to be careful of? Like, kind of give me those guardrails of like, get me in, but don't let me go over the cliff. How do I think of that as just a normal person? I'm a mechanic. I work at the grocery store. I whatever. How do I think of it like that?
Yeah, so I think the guardrails, am I using it too much, anything like that? I think part of that is you have to judge for yourself, right? People have different tolerances for information, overload, velocity, all that kind of stuff. And I think that's almost the same guidelines as social media, right? Like, are you feeling anxious, fearful, because your heart just races? All those things that we would look for in just information overload, all that kind of stuff. I think that's a really wise way. I think the other thing to be really cognizant of is asking yourself, am I offloading my thinking or am I augmenting my thinking? I think that's really, really important. If you use it as solely as a crutch, you are not improving yourself. You are not getting better. You are stunting growth. You are stopping critical thinking skills. If it is something that augments your thinking, where you are still doing critical analysis, still engaging, still critiquing, that kind of stuff, now it's really powerful because it accelerates that process when you're trying to do things. So I think those are those are the starting point guidelines, right? Am I tolerating, like, how do I just tolerate it? Same light as social media. Am I offloading thinking or am I engaging with critical thought? But then outside of that, I would say for those, I personally think if you're avoiding it, I think this is going to change the nature of a lot of working professions, right? And some people will even say, like, hey, well, it's not going to change these jobs. We're like fitting pipes and doing this. Yeah, watch it. Because in a couple of years, you're going to be like, take a picture with your phone and say, oh, this is broken. What pieces do I need to fix it? And you could do that right now with ChatGPT, right? Or Gemini, right? I mean, that's even on the commercial for Gemini, right? How do I put this toilet back together? So avoiding it, I don't think is an option, particularly for those, I would say this, particularly for those that are still in the workforce.
Yeah.
It's changing, particularly white collar jobs first. I mean, software engineering's at the forefront. We've taken a huge hit. People are talking about jobs and stuff. What we've seen is entry level people are getting hit. Well, why? Because it actually makes them a little worse at their jobs. Like they don't get more productive. But that's filtering down very quickly, right? I'm in higher education. We are now teaching our students, we're starting to teach differently. Like we get foundational skills, but we're starting to teach them, hey, this is how you incorporate AI. This is how you augment your thinking. So you're still doing critical evaluation and analysis. You're still learning. You're still scaffolding. So, by the time I think the next couple of years, these people get into the workforce, it's going to be very different. And I know we're worried about losing jobs, all that kind of stuff. Who knows what will happen? My guess is every time we've lost jobs in history, people have found a way to work more. So, I mean, every time that people tell me we're going to a 3-day work week, it seems like we're going up to 7 instead. So,
Amen. Okay. Can I ask you about, let me ask you, and we're almost out of time. So I should have thought of this earlier. It literally just hit me. You mentioned you're teaching students a new way to handle this stuff, which reminds me, we got kids. Do you have advice for a parent? Because a parent's going, is a 5-year-old able to use this? Is a 10-year-old able to use this? Is this like social media? They should be 16. Should I train them at 8? Healthfully how to use it so they're good at it as it becomes a tool everybody uses? How do I think about this if I have kids in my house?
I think if I had to give you a hard and fast rule, I would say treat it like screens and social media. So the way I do it, I generally try to keep my kids away from AI for the most part. or I monitor it tightly, right? So I told you my youngest daughter will get on and talk to the Echo and have these conversations, and they are just wild sometimes, man. They're great stories. But they don't, for that one, I will say they don't seem harmful. We've all heard the bad stories that come out.
Yeah.
Technically, if you read like the terms of service, I think most of the services say you're not allowed to use this if you're under 13.
Okay.
But I think the best thing for parents, all right, and this is the hardest thing because we keep telling parents, be engaged on this, be engaged on this. I mean, it's exhausting. You know this. You have kids. It is exhausting. But being engaged, right? So I teach my kids about AI. Hey, it's not always right. Sometimes we'll have a question in the car and we'll be like, well, hey, check it out. And I'll put ChatGPT or Claude in voice mode and we'll have a conversation on Bluetooth while we're going down. I want them to experience it alongside me and see how I treat it and I interact with it so that, this, we can tell our kids all we want and they'll pick it up. They'll remember it 20 years from now. But what they really remember is like, but I remember what you were like, Dad, like how you used it and what you did with it. So being engaged, being aware. I would, right? My kids aren't quite teenagers yet. So maybe you can answer this question. You have teenagers. Teenagers and AI scare me a little bit because that's already such an emotionally unstable age that I'm just like, man, this is going to be rough if they're relying on this for advice or like counseling or, all these use cases where like, maybe we shouldn't get relationship advice from ChatGPT or Claude shouldn't be our counselor,
No, and that's good. I think that's a good way to think of it. What are the other tools that we would say kids need to have some oversight with or training on? They learn how to drive. I would think of it like that, like a car, maybe not quite as much as like a gun, but not altogether differently, where you just think social media, cars. If you give a kid car keys or you give a kid a Snapchat without any rules, regulations, or guidelines, you can expect it to go poorly. And so that's probably a helpful spot to leave that is parents are going to figure it out. It is the Wild West and we are on the forefront. And so we don't know what we don't know yet. But yeah, careful is probably right. And doing it together because this is one of those places our kids are learning faster than we are about it and they're going to outpace us in it. And so we should be learning with them so that we can understand it with them. Rob, I've kept you for too long. We're at the end of our time. This is my time to ask you, is there any summarizing thoughts? Is there any final word? Is there one more thing you want to tell us before we close out here?
I think AI is going to be a great tool. It's something that help us. I think it'll help us level up as human beings. I hope if nobody's heard it, as I've said it, or you haven't heard it, I think this is a great tool that is going to augment us. It's going to amplify us up. And I'm hoping make us better at what we do, better at work, better at thought, better at critical thinking, better at engagement. That's my hope in the long run, right? That's where it'll end up. There's going to be some bumps. It's a rough run, right? Transitions are hard, all those kind of things. So it is a challenge, right? I hope nobody heard me say this is easy or this is always fun. I hope they heard me say, hey, this is work. I've come home shredded and nervous myself. So, it definitely goes both ways. But I think overall, I'm not a doomer. I'm on the positive side of this. I think it's going to be a great tool to hopefully make us better as all things, as people, as humans, as Christians. I think it's going to level us up. And that's my hope in the end.
I love it. It is a tool. If you heard nothing else, people, it's a tool. That backhoe can dig a trench to go to war and induce killing. It can also dig a foundation for a cathedral to worship the heavens. So you put the tool to kingdom action. I think that's what we're hearing from Rob. Take the tool, use it for the things that honors God. And let's be cautious but excited as we figure it out together. Rob, thank you for being here. Thanks for giving us some of your time. This is just wildly helpful. We are all learning together. So having you here is super helpful at the pace of change and the accelerated pace of change. We might be asking you back in a year or so to tell us all the new things we don't know about. But thanks for making time for this. For everybody else, thank you for joining us, for listening, for engaging. If you like what you hear, go on AI. No, I don't know. Join us next time we get back together for the very next Covenant Conversation. Covenant Conversations is produced by Jake Trethaway and Robert McMahan. It's recorded at Covenant Church in the beautiful frozen swamp of Bowling Green, Ohio. For more information, visit bgcovenant.org.